What's shaking, people? Back with another reaction, back with some more Duran Duran, and we're back to finish the 1986 album Notorious. I very much enjoyed going through this. It has had a pretty, I would say, consistent sound. Not that there hasn't been any variation, but I definitely sort of feel the funk, kind of like jam, sort of, pop and bass, saxophones come in. I feel the sort of the funky, fresh flavor of this album, absolutely. So it very much accomplished the sort of tonal and musical atmosphere it was going for. So I'm interested to see how this song fits into that and the way in which the album ends overall. So I'm not only thinking about it as an individual work of art, but I am very conscious of it being the final track on the album. And I do believe at least two people, if not more, have mentioned that this is another track where it's like, wow, like what a great way to end an album. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. Proposition, I mentioned it when I got to the end of my reaction to Winter Marches On. It's a word that can have a couple different meanings in a logical or sort of linguistic sense. It is a true statement. It is a sentence establishing some information. So it's in that context, it could be a declaration, it could be a claim about some state of affairs that, it might not be universally accepted. It could be a contested proposition, but ultimately, if it's in that context, it relates into which the way someone sees the world and therefore speaks about it. But proposition can also relate to querying if someone is interested in a sexual dalliance. So, it could be a proposition in that way, which, I'd be interested to see, what contours or what sort of lyrical themes that might take, but it might be neither of those things. It could be a proposition in a different way. And, in a political sense, a proposition can be a voter created measure that is then, garners enough support to actually make it on the ballot and to be a choosing point between an electorate, which is to say a proposition could relate to an idea that people either want to enact or they want to reject. So yeah, I suppose there's a number of different ways you could go on this. It'll probably have nothing to do with any of those things, and going on my track record lately, it'll probably be pronounced differently. So I do apologize. Some of these things are like regionalisms in terms of, out here in California, there are certain words that we just, and names, I guess, that we say differently. So part of it is just, sort of the regional and international nature of the English language. And then part of it is also that, like, there are certain, like, phrases that perhaps, because they are more in use in the UK or so on, perhaps I might mispronounce them or sort of like slightly misunderstand them. So I do apologize when occasionally my sort of pesky American provincialism gets in the way. But yeah, let's get to it. This is Duran Duran, Proposition, the final tune on the 1986 album Notorious. Once again, did want to give a shout out to Nile Rodgers. Very much enjoy the sound of this album, and I know he was involved in producing it. I believe he was in Chic, which I don't know much about. I remember reading when someone mentioned that, I was like, oh, Chic, what is that? And I remember looking it up, and it was like, apparently they're sort of a disco outfit, but they were kind of innovative, and they did things that other disco groups weren't doing, so I am curious about that, but ultimately shout out to him as well. But here we go, Duran Duran, Proposition on their 1986 album Notorious. I may have heard this. It sounds kind of familiar. I think I heard this. Bring back the child, she said. Bring back the what she said? Stand in the price of freedom. Holding my baby's head. Don't like the wind. I like the key. Bum, 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 bum. I like the brass things. And the guitars is kind of like this steady, gritty pulse. Bang. Bang. When all your pride is dead. Bang, bang. Oh, and I love the brass doubling the guitar in that last couple hits. like the way they sung that. Or maybe it's just Simon's voice doubled. I sometimes can't tell if it's like they're actually harmonizing multiple people or if it's like Simon's voice like textured over itself. Kind of sung that with a bit of edge. He went less for liquid metal and more for some grit. The keys, there's like a bit of dissonance in there. There's a bit of like melancholy blue in that one layer. The rest of it's kind of like, you know, up and funky and groovy. But the keys kind of have like a bit of a complicated color to them. Must be scared instead. Oh, I love the drum roll there. I do love that part of what I now assume to be the chorus. Edge to this interlude, and it's mainly the guitar, but even the percussion and the brass hits is like hard and like everything's kind of stomping and sort of physical. It's not like a floaty tune is what I'm saying. It's a real like boom, bam, like everything's hitting in its spot. You must be scared instead. I absolutely love that moment. I'm not hearing like the first part of the sentence, which actually includes the word composition, so like I'm still very much on the edges of this one thematically. I mean, we got like words like surrender and like it's a really nice groove. Once again, shout out to all the brass, including the saxophone on this album. I really love like well-used brass instruments, in particular a good saxophone line. So yeah, I like that element of this album's production in particular. Yeah, it's cool. I feel like maybe, you know, it's one of those songs that once I pick up on more of the themes, perhaps the degree to which that, you know, really is like a great album-ending song will be more apparent. In a way, it felt like a lot of the other stuff on the album. So, as I said, I have to hear it some more. I have to let it bake into my brain. But it's another cool tune. I very much enjoyed it, and I like the sort of like kinetic kind of physical dancing sort of feel. Again, that sort of funky, fresh kind of feeling that I think a lot of the album conveyed or evinced. But yeah, like I said, I feel like thematically there's a lot of work for me to do on that one. I caught some lines and some lines that have some interesting concepts, but yeah, I didn't make enough of it to like put the pieces together. So once again, shout out to all the people who have commented. If there's an element that, you know, will help me kind of key in on some of the lines and make a little more sense of them, please don't hesitate to say it. But whether or not you're commenting on the lyrics, thank you to all the Duran Duran fans who have, you know, been sort of along with me on this journey and have suggested certain albums. I'm going to get through them all eventually, and I've now finished, I think it's like 3 or 4, so yeah, starting to get through the catalog and listen to more and more. And as I mentioned recently, I'm beginning to get a sense of sort of the, the timeline and sort of the evolution and explorations of their musical legacy. So yeah, still a lot of understanding to go in that regard, but like I said, beginning to stitch together sort of a sonic narrative in my mind, which is very enjoyable. So yeah, let me know what you think of this album, let me know what you think of this tune in particular, and other than that, I will see you next time. Peace.